Thank you very much. If I may add one piece, when Celine and I were talking, you were talking about these projects and what the youth do. There was one line that you said, when they get engaged in these projects and working with those materials and the resources that you have available, the things they come up with, we couldn't have thought of that. And I think that's kind of like a really important piece. Like, as we bring everybody together, there are ideas that are going to come out that we would otherwise not think about. Finally, I have some time for questions for the room here. I gave up on the online system, so who's got... I'll bring it back for the second session, but who's got some questions? There.
Thank you very much, Sandra. I think the organization of the speaker is very good, because I heard from somebody talking about education is very important. So in order to get people out of poverty, and then I also heard Wenko is talking about the university in New Zealand and getting 65K student, start from zero, no university. And then I also heard about jobs. It's actually these residents, entrepreneur residents in Kingston. And then at the end, I talk about the Fab Lab. So it has a very good systematic approach of how to present the innovation idea. But I sort of thinking, after I heard everything, but because before I came, I still thinking about innovation. One of the piece that I still feel that is sort of lacking, a piece, is because when I think about innovation, is creating wealth. And I understand education is important and the mentoring is important, but we seem to still missing a piece of how to create wealth out of innovation. So, anyone?
Thank you. Would somebody like to say something to that question? All right. So, by the way, I was going to introduce Guy Dankos in a moment. He's actually been absolutely instrumental in pulling this panel together. And he's also putting together a project on an indigenous entrepreneurship circle. So, so we'll let Guy talk too, okay?
I would like to argue that education is also the source of creation of wealth.
Ça fonctionne? Oui. In fact, what Sandra was saying about some of the ideas that come out of the Fab Lab is just amazing. When they're getting very rooted, the project that they do in the afternoon, it's mainly oriented toward businesses, like selling your own product or innovating in the way you do your work in art or in technology. And just to illustrate, one of the participants, one of the very first participants, it was a Cree from up north, and what he designed was a polar star. He lost 3 members of his family because they were lost in the bush during the winter, and at 3 different times in his life, 3 members of his family was found unfounded, and they died there. So his way of going to the wealth through the innovation, but also through the culture, was to make those polar stars that he will now commercialize instead of 10 or 20 polar stars that you can have in your backpack when you go in the forest. And those polar stars, they emit light, very, very bright light, also a sound, vibration in case snow is over the polar star or leaves are over polar star, and also some very acute sound that can be heard only by rescue dogs. So that show how they can come from the tradition, goes to the innovation, and do a product that is very, very rooted in this century. Another example is a girl from Rapid Lake. I don't know if some of you know this community. It's a very, very remote community, and she didn't finish her second years of high school, and her uncle missed a hand, and what she did, she produced articulated hand by computer. And she didn't have her second grade of high school. So very, very rooted in their own reality, but as we can see, very rooted in the market as well. Like this girl, she wants to sell those handed everywhere in Canada, in First Nation, but eventually she would like to go to Africa as well. So innovation, tradition, market, reality seems to be kind of integrated within some of their projects.
Thank you very much. And actually, because innovation is very close to my heart, and in fact, I understand like 3D training, laser, and I came from an engineering background. In fact, actually, I felt myself very close to the English people as well when I was in Saskatchewan. I did my engineering in Saskatchewan, and at that time I also worked part-time in the restaurant called like Chinese Palace or something. It's always like people coming and call me sister, like so I feel very close to you people. But like I happen also to a Queen's grad, not Ottawa grad, but like Queen's grad. So like I was sort of like in technology management, so this is very close to me. But this is very exciting. I definitely feel they came from nowhere, but going somewhere. Like somebody have the vision to guide those people and mentor. I think that's an exciting thing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Does this thing work?
It should. Yep. Go. Just go.
Hello, can you hear me? Yeah, I think if you have good ideas and innovation, if you're going to make change, you're going to have to deal in numbers, not small amounts over here and there and everywhere. That's not going to make change. That is going to make a difference. I think universities and colleges, have got blocks to entry for students, and they've allowed costs to get out of control. So it becomes a challenge of affordability. And in a situation like you have in Canada, if you allow your costs to get too high, then people can't participate, and Indigenous people can't participate. And not only that, because of the isolation and low levels of literacy, it's hell of a hard for even the ones that gain entry into mainstream to pass. And unless you actually fix the foundational skills level, how the heck can people pass? And so if a student came to Ottawa University who can't read and write, how the hell do you get them through? And you hold the bastion of higher education. I think that one of the things we did in New Zealand to change the whole face of education was that we have to fix foundation learning. And it's also the responsibility of higher learning institutions to do that, and not just continually block people from entry. When we set up the institution in New Zealand, I had an agreement with the government that we would achieve an 80% pass rate And we bend over backwards to do it. And if you're dealing with adults who want to succeed, and most of them do, and if you can give them the skills and the opportunity and the accessibility, not all having to come to Ottawa to this university, but out in the regions where they live in communities, you have to make education accessible, which is what we did in New Zealand. So and the Indigenous university that I'm talking about is not a replication of what you have here. It's geared to meet, to provide economic activities in the communities where the people live. And so using modern technology is totally important in doing that and educating people back in their own communities. Way back 20 years ago, when computers first came out, we had a deal with IBM in providing desktop computers, home-based learning. And so you'd have all the directions in the computers. We'd bring students in from around the country for a couple of weeks, introduce them to the computers, and they take it home and they can self-educate by following the instructions. And I remember our first home-based computing class, we achieved 85% graduation at level 3 because those computers weren't linked to the internet, so that we learned that students can waste a hell of a lot of time looking at stuff that they shouldn't look at. But if you have the directions stuck in the computer, and because wireless and online wasn't good in New Zealand, that was the way we overcome it, and people learned to operate computers properly. The other thing is, 20 years ago, because we were dealing with students all over the country, I would have brought 30,000 cell phones, so every student could be linked to their tutor. The way I envisage people using cell phones today, we did that 20 years ago, to make sure that we could use that technology to keep in contact with students and to jog them along if they got behind in their assignments. So these are the technological advances that you need to implement.
Thank you. Okay, so we've got people starting to leave. Sylvain, just like somebody can catch Sylvain by the elevator. I've got something for him. So what I'm going to do, I think we do need to move to the break. I want to thank you very much for your contributions here. There are a number of things I'm hearing here, and you'll see on the poll left, like if you do go back to that over the break, there's a space for conversation nuggets. If there's something that you heard here that you think we really need to take into account for the development of our research agenda, I'd really like to see that on there. And just as I can't Sylvain here, we have a little present for each of the speakers. This is a 3D printed thank you gift. So thank you for coming. And we've got one for each speaker. I just needed to kind of do that before he snuck out there. So with that, I want to thank all of you, each one of you. It says inclusive innovation on here, and then it says merci, miigwech, and thank you. Thank you very much. All right, let's take a break.